I'm Dr. Christopher Barker. I'm a New Jersey licensed clinical psychologist, and welcome to Holding Space. Or if you've been holding space from me before, welcome back to Holding Space. April is a variety of mental health issues months. It seems like there's so many issues we have to have multiple issues on the same month. I know it's stress awareness. We'll deal with that at some point, but today I want to talk about Child Abuse Awareness Month. It's more than just awareness, really. It's about making actions, having education, understanding the systems that protect children. It's about recognizing forms of abuse, the kinds that often go unseen, including the trauma that children experience when they witness domestic violence. That is also a form of abuse. To understand where we are today, let's take a look at how we got here. How the laws evolved, how the awareness came to be, and why April is the month dedicated to prevention. In 1962, a pediatrician named C. Henry Kemp published a groundbreaking article entitled The Battered Child Syndrome. I remember they had us read this in school. This was the first time that the medical community formally recognized child abuse as a diagnosable pattern rather than a private family matter. In 1974, the first federal child protection law was passed. 1974, mind you. Congress passed the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, CAPTA. It defined child abuse and neglect. It required states to create mandatory reporting systems and provided federal funding for prevention, investigation, and treatment. So the programs that we have now are as a direct result of that. In 1982, was the first National Child Abuse Prevention Week. Congress designated a week in June to raise awareness. 1983, April became the National Child Abuse Prevention Month. The following year, April was officially proclaimed that Child Abuse Prevention Month, and it's been observed every year since. 1996, CAPTA amendments required each state to identify a lead agency for community-based child abuse prevention grants. And in 2008, the Keeping Children and Families Safe Act was passed, further expanded CAPTA and reinforced federal support for prevention and intervention. And think about how recent those things are. I mean, anyone who's older than me, there are some people who are older than me, stop it, have actually lived in an age in which this was not a thing. Child abuse was something that happened at home. It was something that wasn't talked about. There was nobody to protect. There was nobody to defend. There wasn't an agency. It took until the 1960s before it was even identified. And 1970s before anything with any teeth in it came into being. I think that's worthy of a moment of reflection. It's amazing to me. Symbols of the campaign, the awareness, the Blue Ribbon Campaign, 1989, began with a Virginia grandmother who tied a blue ribbon to her car antenna in memory of her grandson who died from abuse. And that sparked a movement. Today, blue ribbons and pinwheel gardens symbolize hope, prevention, and the commitment to protect children. So what counts as child abuse? Okay, child abuse isn't limited to physical harm. CAPTA defines abuse broadly, including physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional or psychological maltreatment, and neglect. I think that's important too. Sometimes what we constitute as abuse, and there's some times that I have had to report people. I'm a mandated reporter as a psychologist, and I've had to report people if there was neglect, if there was something going on in the home that the child was not being cared for, and also for actual abuse that is of the more traditional kind, physical abuse. Witnessing domestic violence is a form of child abuse. This is one that's not talked about very often. Children don't have to be physically touched to be harmed. When a child witnesses domestic violence, whether they see it, hear it, or sense the aftermath, their nervous system responds as if they are in danger. And I think this is something that I talk about in my upcoming book. I think this is something that we have really not given enough attention to. Well, yeah, no, nothing happened to the child directly, but something's going on in the family. And that is a trauma. And that is a severe trauma. And if it goes on often enough, it becomes a complex trauma with all the attendant disruptions in the ability to relate to people and the ability to live in linear time. You flash back, you have shame, you have doubt, you have insecurities, you are hypervigilant. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And sometimes if you're not aware of what's going on, it's even more poignant. A child's brain cannot distinguish threat to a caregiver from threat to themselves. This is really interesting. Hypervigilance and chronic stress become baseline states. Witnessing violence disrupts attachment and safety. I think everyone's heard of the strange situation that Ainsworth and Bowlby worked on, and that was essentially that a child was separated from the caregiver, and then either the parent came back or a stranger came back, and they worked on attachment styles as some sort of indication of how the child and parent were getting along. It's not that how the child reacted when the caregiver left that was really of interest. What's really of interest is how the child reacted when either a stranger came back in the room or a parent came back in the room. Pure attachment, child's so glad to see the parent again. All the other forms of attachment have some sort of disruption evident. Organized is probably the worst because the child has both a fear of the parent and at the same time they desire to see them back. They want their parents, but at the same time they recognize that there's something wrong. Children absorb emotional climates. Even if they don't see the violence, they feel tension. They hear raised voices. They feel fear. They have the emotional aftermath. It shapes their understanding of relationships also. And this is something that I have to talk to parents about over and over again and have to talk to children about also. What you're witnessing changes the way you see other people. It changes the way you see romantic relationships, parental relationships, relationships with friends. Children who grow up in violent homes may normalize unhealthy dynamics or struggle with the boundaries later in life. You've heard of fight, flight, fawn, faint. They've expanded fight and flight so much now. Freeze is also another one, but you're more likely to get freeze, fawn, and faint responses from someone who has grown up in an environment that is pathological, grown up in an environment of abuse. Also, children who witness domestic violence, this is now recognized by Child Protective Services. So that's the Division of Child Protection and Permanency in New Jersey, in case anyone wonders what it's called. And many states classify the exposure to domestic violence as a form of maltreatment. And captive-funded agencies track and respond to these cases. We're going to have a link to the phone number to report violence if you see it. I think it's really important that we as a community recognize what's going on. I think we as a community need to realize what the difference is between healthy behavior and unhealthy behavior and how important it is to give children as healthy a background as possible. We are all subjected to some trauma on the course of our lives to varying degrees. The worst kind is the kind that people never see and that you never talk about. The kind of trauma that is insidious, but at the same time makes home a really unpleasant place to be. When I was growing up, there was one kid who lived next door to me. Actually, there were two children. One was older and one was younger. And the younger one really didn't know exactly what was going on, but the parents fought. We could hear them arguing. And this one kid, the older one, would leave the house in the morning to go to school with his parents. And then you'd see him sneaking back into the house. An hour later, he walked all the way back home from school. He did not want to be there. He was not able to handle the stimulating environment of school. Eventually, this came to be known, and he did get mental health help, and the family moved away. So I'm not entirely sure what happened to him, but I was very young at the time. It was hard to know what was really happening, but Things like this informed why I do what I do. Things like this informed why I became a trauma specialist, why I became a psychologist. I don't want to see these situations go on. And I think most people do not. So what can you do this April? Okay, well, there's some simple ways to participate in Child Abuse Prevention Month. You can wear a blue ribbon. You can plant or photograph a pinwheel garden. You can share educational resources, attend prevention events. There are some in your community. Just do child abuse prevention events near me in Google. It's so much easier now since we have things like that. Support organizations that strengthen families. Learn the signs of abuse and how to report concerns. Small actions add up, and awareness leads to intervention, and intervention leads to safety. And that's what we're all looking for, is more safety. Just watching the evening news can become abusive in a way because of what we're subjected to. So again, it's not coddling to withhold stressful environments from children. It's actually being kind. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them what they're seeing, how they're feeling. They'll be glad to tell you. It's really important. By understanding the history, by recognizing the signs and acknowledging the hidden forms of harm, like witnessing domestic violence, we move closer to a world in which children are truly protected. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough. And good enough involves not having to witness, not having to be hurt, not having to be psychologically abused. Thank you for holding space for this important topic. I'm Dr. Christopher Barker. Leave comments, ask questions. I'm more than glad to get to them as soon as I can. And I will see you next time on Holding Space.